I'd like to call the August 25th Board of Selectmen meeting to order. First, I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone in the audience who is also recording this meeting. Seeing none, if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go on with the regular agenda, I would like to acknowledge a great loss the town of Auburn experienced last week, the death of Glenn Mitchell. Glenn worked for the town of Auburn for nearly 40 years. He was a longtime elected highway surveyor and tree warden. He was deputy fire chief, retiring in 1999. And most of all, he was truly a resident who just cared about the town and would help anyone at any time. I would ask that you join me in a moment of silence for Glenn Mitchell. Thank you, and our thoughts continue to be with his family. First, we have public comment, and we have Joe Hamill, who signed up.
Joe Hamill, Precinct 5 Town Meeting Member. On June 23rd, the Board of Selectmen members' items, number B, request a vote to reconsider town meeting reporting procedures. It was filed by Mr. Carpenter, and what it wants to do, or does, is remove the names of the voting members of the Board of Selectmen for town meeting items. I would like a reconsideration of that motion.
Okay, we'll consider it and put it on a future agenda. Thank you. And next, we have the town manager who would like to make an introduction. Mrs. Jacobson?
Thank you. Through the chair, I want to introduce Mignon Murray. Mignon, if you want to come up to here, you can sit at the table for a second. I'm sorry, this is a little too close for me. Is that bad? Mignon Murray is the new Senior Center Director, and she has been with us almost 3 weeks, not quite 3 weeks, so brand new. And Mignon comes with a fabulous experience. She had worked for 4 years as the Assistant Director of the Council on Aging and the Senior Center in the town of Natick, and was also in charge of all the programs and operations and volunteers there. And she's just got some tremendous ideas, great experience, varied background, including working for a housing authority prior to that. So she's worked with disadvantaged populations as well as the elderly, and as well as seniors age 55 and over. So I want to introduce Mignon to you and see if she'd say a few words.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you for having me here tonight. It's been a pleasure to meet those in Auburn who I already have, and I want to encourage those I have not met yet to please come and visit us at the center and to consider volunteering as well. We are always looking for volunteers to run programs and do a variety of things, and please reach out and come by and see us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome aboard.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no public hearings and presentations, no communications under Board of Selectmen items. We have a one-day entertainment license for Sheldon Harley-Davidson at 914 Southbridge Street. Is the applicant here? If you could come up to the microphone, please. If you could give your name for the record.
It's Stephanie Bolivar.
Okay. And so if you could tell us, we have your application in front of us. If you could tell us a little bit about what you'll be doing.
We're holding a bike giveaway, and we have a radio station coming down and a band coming down, considering if we get the permit for the entertainment license. And Credence here is providing the catering and the beer that's going to be there as well, considering the permit. Yeah.
So we have an entertainment license which would need to be passed before we can move on to the one-day beer and wine license. But so members know, they are together for the same day. And what you received tonight was a previous DCG recommendation for an entertainment license. They had filed for, it was Creedon and Company who applied for the one-day beer and wine license, and so they weren't aware they needed to have a entertainment license also. So at the last minute, we contacted Sheldon's and told them they would need to have an entertainment license to have the beer and wine license. But none of the conditions have changed to the previous licenses that were approved by this board. So do any board members have any questions regarding the entertainment license?
I don't have anything.
Okay. So there were some conditions that were placed on the license the last time that
Okay.
Sheldon's was in, one of them being the applicant shall obtain any and all required Board of Health permits associated with the serving of food at the event. The applicant shall obtain a building permit for any temporary structures associated with the scheduled events, including but not limited to tents. A sign permit will be required for any temporary signage promoting the event, including but not limited to banners. So just be aware of those conditions.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments? Are there any public question or comment? Is there a motion regarding the application?
I'll make a motion to approve the license, provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, with the recommendations of the DCG to be placed on the license.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Good luck with your event.
Thank you.
And next, we have the one-day beer and wine license for Creedon and Company at Sheldon's Harley-Davidson, 914 Southbridge Street. Good evening. If you could just identify yourself for the record, please.
Good evening, board members. My name is John Creedon Jr. from Creedon and Company.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be, what your role will be in that day?
Sheldon's has hired Creedon and Company to provide food concessions for attendees of the event, as well as beer and wine concessions for attendees. And beyond that, Creedon and Company is providing a tent for the event. It's actually up. It's been up. We had previously pulled a permit for that tent, and rather than take that tent down and put another one up, we're just going to leave that tent up and hold the event underneath that tent, which has already been permitted.
And I see that your hours are 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. for this event?
That's accurate.
Okay. And you've met with the DCG and are familiar with the recommendation, the conditions placed on the license?
I have,
The applicant
yep.
shall obtain any and all Board of Health permits associated with the serving of food at the event, and the applicant shall obtain all required building permits and inspections related to the installation of tents proposed for use during the event.
And the catering permit was filed last week, and again, the tent has already been permitted, so
Okay.
it should be okay.
And you have tip certified servers?
We do, in our application, we're provided photocopies of our servers' credentials, as well as our insurance certificate.
And the alcohol will be served under the tent?
Correct, in a contained area. Yep.
Okay. So how will you ensure that it's just, legal age drinkers obtaining the
Our
alcohol?
professional and trained bartenders will card
Okay.
folks who need to be carded to ensure that there's no underage service or
And the-
consumption.
And the alcohol will remain under the tent, or will they be allowed to bring it out into the general area?
No, it will be in a contained area
Okay.
within the tent. Yep.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Mr. Simonian?
Just one. So, in that area, anyone of any age can go into that area. The only thing that's preventing them from having liquor sold to them is the people selling it? who are checking the IDs?
Essentially, yes, yep.
So, I guess my only concern is what is to prevent someone who's of age buying one and handing it to someone who's not?
Our trained servers will be on the lookout for any sort of activity like that.
Do you know how many people were there last year? Ballpark?
I don't know how many people were there last year.
So you'll have servers monitoring the tent, not just behind the bar, but monitoring the tent?
Yes, our servers will,
Will
Be-
move about?
correct, yes. Yep.
To make anyone who's in the tent aware that you're observing the alcohol consumption?
that's
Great.
correct, yes.
Mrs. Brotherton?
Will there be any police presence,
I
to your
haven't,
knowledge?
I haven't arranged for that. When I met with the DCG,
Okay.
they didn't seem to attach any condition to our
Okay.
application in that regard.
Thank you.
Yep. The last order of business, one of your colleagues, Pat Beauregard, asked that I file a letter of permission from Sheldon's, which we have.
Right.
I'm going to bring that up.
Yeah, you can give it to Sharon, please. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So is it your plan to have all three servers on site during those hours?
We're going to have adequate servers based on, what the numbers are going to be projected, which I don't know. We're going to finalize those details in the coming days. We'll have ample staff, though.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments? Is there any public question or comment? Does someone want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the license, provided all applicable requirements of the state and town, and any of its departments, boards, or commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it, and failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and with the recommendations of the DCG to be placed on the license.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Thanks so much. Have a good event.
Thank you. Am I free to leave now?
Yes.
Have a good night. Thank you.
No, you have to stay till the end.
I'll entertain a motion to move up item 7F1, where we have people waiting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. This came in at the last minute. So before we begin the process, I would ask for a vote to approve and present a proclamation for Timothy Bigelow, Revolutionary War hero from Auburn. And then I'll invite Mrs. Nurse up and we'll have a presentation. Is there a motion to authorize
Motion to
and
authorize
present?
the proclamation for Timothy Bigelow.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Welcome to come up here or go up there, wherever you're most comfortable. And if you could just give your names for the record, please.
Yes, Madam Chairman, my name is Deborah Nurse, and also,
I'm Barbara Trax.
Welcome.
we are both members of the Colonel Timothy Bigelow chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So we'd like to make sure that all Auburn residents are aware of the history of Colonel Timothy Bigelow, who was born on Packagug Hill in what is now called Auburn, and we would like to invite all of you to attend the day-long festival on September 7th, which will be held in Worcester, Massachusetts, and there will be a number of activities. I have brochures will be leaving both here and downstairs at the Recreation Department, so that everyone is aware and of all of the various activities. And specifically, we would like to invite everyone to visit the Oaks, which is the headquarters of the Colonel Timothy Bigelow chapter, which will be open from 10 until 2 that day. So it is a free event, and we look forward to celebrating with everyone. So thank you very much for tonight.
And we do have a proclamation from the Board of Selectmen. So, from the Town of Auburn Board of Selectmen proclamation, whereas the Auburn Board of Selectmen wishes to recognize and acknowledge individuals for their service to the community and to their country, and whereas Colonel Timothy Bigelow was born on August 12, 1739, on Packagug Hill in what is now Auburn, and whereas Colonel Timothy Bigelow was the leader of the Worcester Revolution in 1774 that overthrew British rule in central Massachusetts, and whereas Colonel Bigelow continued to serve with distinction and bravery in the American Revolution to the end of the war, and whereas the 240th anniversary of the Worcester Revolution of 1774 will be celebrated in Worcester on September 7th, 2014, and now, therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Auburn, Massachusetts, hereby honor our native son, Timothy Bigelow, for all he and his compatriots achieved in September 1774, and for the courage and heroism they displayed in the pursuit of liberty. Presented to the members of the Colonel Timothy Bigelow Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, and it's presented by the 5 members of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you
So
very, very
congratulations.
much.
Thank you. Do you want me to stay here?
Chairman Goodrich, on behalf of the Colonel Timothy Bigelow chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, we would like to present you with this cockade. And these were worn to denote one's political affiliation at that time. So it could be pinned to one's hat, one's bonnet, one's tricorn hat, or one's clothing.
Well, thank
So-
you. I will wear it with pride.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for
Yes.
coming in, and
You're
good luck
very
with your
welcome.
event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go home and change. It's too warm.
Thank you again for coming in and making us aware of that little bit of
Yes.
history that I don't think a lot of us knew. Okay, we are back to our regular agenda. Board of Selectmen items. We have, back on our agenda, we have the election workers' appointments for 2014, 2015. Enclosed is a list provided by the town clerk. And this is the same list she provided to us previously. The clerk has explained to me these are experienced workers who have served well, and she would appreciate the appointments. Is there, Mrs. Simonian?
Motion to recommend the list with the exception of Patricia Joyce.
Is there a second? Hearing no second.
Well, I make a motion, we ought to appoint the individuals on the list of election workers for the terms effective September 1st, 2014 to August 31st, 2015.
Is there a
Second.
second? Is there discussion?
Yep.
Mrs. Simonian?
I think that when voters go and cast their votes, they have a reasonable reason to believe that their votes will be counted as cast. A poll checker at last year's election informed me that Ms. Joyce pulled an improper ballot from what was supposed to be the seal.
I'm going to call up.
This was confirmed by the town.
Mr. Simonian, this is not the place to address it. Did you file a formal complaint?
A complaint was filed.
Did you-
This is absolutely, you're trying to appoint someone. This is absolutely the place to address it.
Did you file a formal complaint?
I don't have
with
to
the
file a
appropriate
complaint. I'm a
agency?
member of this board being asked to appoint someone. I'm telling people why I'm not supporting someone on this list. I have every right to address my reasons for not supporting someone. If someone is pulling an improper ballot from what's supposed to be an absentee ballot envelope, and it's not actually an absentee ballot, that person should not be on this list. And furthermore, where you have several times claimed to be a very close friend of Ms. Joyce, I believe you should recuse yourself from this vote altogether, because I don't see how you can be objective voting on someone who's such a close friend and a fellow member of the Democratic Town Committee.
Anyone has a right to due process, and if this allegation has not been
I'm not
properly
accusing-
filed and investigated,
I'm not
you are
making an
accusing, you're making a
accusation.
public...
I'm stating a fact, and if you want to bring the town clerk in here and ask her, she was standing right there when the ballot was pulled from the envelope. It was an incorrect ballot. It was supposed to be an absentee ballot, and it was actually a regular ballot. And it was one of the ballots that was in Ms. Joyce's care. So I'm not making an allegation, I'm just stating a fact, and the town clerk will corroborate that. So I'm just saying, when I cast a vote or anyone else casts a vote, we have a reasonable expectation that that vote will be counted as cast, and that there won't be any reason to think that it's not. When an improper ballot is pulled from an envelope, that gives me cause to pause and say, even the appearance that things aren't on the up and up, that's not what our system is about. There's enough talk of voter fraud that goes on with every election cycle. I don't think we need it here. So again, I'm not making an accusation, I'm just stating a fact.
Mr. Holstrom.
Madam Chair, for the board, this is the first I have heard of this allegation, and...
It's not an allegation.
As Mr. Simone had mentioned earlier when he first began his comments, that it seemed that it was hearsay that he had heard from somebody. Unless I have some fact in front of me, I don't think that this should be discussed.
And I ask that we
should not
hold it and bring the
Excuse
town
me,
clerk
Mr.
in.
Simone, I'm speaking here, but I believe that without fact in front of us, I don't think that discussion should go on. As Mr. Simone had mentioned, he said a person approached him, that's hearsay, and I don't believe there's anything there that we should be
Excuse
voting
me.
on, so I
Just-
think that we should move forward on this.
This person was an official poll checker who was sanctioned to be there and watch the process. That person is not just anyone approaching me. That is someone who was there, who was sanctioned to be there as a poll checker and witnessed it. So if you truly are after doing the right thing here, then I say let's hold it to our next meeting, ask the town clerk to be here, because she was standing right there when it happened as well.
So-
Otherwise, you're just helping out your friends once again.
That was uncalled for.
It's not uncalled for, it's the truth, and you do it all the time.
So,
I've made the motion that we appoint all the
Right.
members on the list as presented to us from Ellen Gabriel, our town clerk.
and before we just take the vote, just for the record, if this board does not pass this list as presented, then it goes to the Board of Registrars to approve, because this list has to be approved. But certainly, I would like Ms. Gabriel to come in, because we've just made a very serious allegation
I'm not
against...
making an allegation.
You
Stop
did.
putting words in my mouth. I'm telling you. I'm just stating
You
a
used-
fact.
no, you
As it
used-
was presented to me.
You used phrases like voter
Don't
fraud.
tell me what I said. I am a
did-
wordsmith, and I know what words
Oh.
mean. Please don't put words in my
You
mouth.
used-
I said that someone approached me, that person was a sanctioned poll checker, and informed me that during last year's election, they witnessed it. That is not just somebody walking up off the street and saying it. That is someone who was sanctioned to be there as a poll checker in an official capacity.
All right, so just for the record, a sanctioned poll worker is someone who works for a campaign who received prior permission from the campaign to sit and observe. Well, I just want, for the record. That's
fine,
all, for the
but
record,
Don't put words
yeah.
in my mouth. I'm just saying, I don't see how you can support
Right.
someone who...
Right, and certainly I hope that we can invite the town clerk in to clarify these allegations. All those in
It's not an
favor?
allegation. I wish you'd stop using the word
All
allegation.
those in
I am
favor?
not accusing
Aye.
you.
Mrs. Brotherton?
Aye, yes.
Chair votes aye. All those opposed?
Excuse me, point of order. I'd like to hear your reason for not recusing yourself. You've stated over and over and over
Because I
that Ms.
have-
Joyce is a very close friend of yours.
Because I
And
have
I'd like
no-
to finish
I
without
have
being
no
interrupted.
financial
Could I finish
interest
without
in
being
this.
interrupted?
No, you may not. We're moving on.
Really? So now you get to make policy by yourself?
I don't need to explain to you why I need to
You
recuse or
absolutely-
why I don't.
you
No.
You're right.
First-
I'm a voter, and you do or owe it to
Mr.
me.
Simonian?
You owe it to them. as well.
Simonian?
This is a democracy still.
You need to
This is not
stop.
a dictatorship.
You're absolutely right, but you need to stop being so rude and disrespectful.
You interrupted me. Who's being rude and
I
disrespectful?
said we're moving on.
You interrupted me. Don't accuse me of what you just did.
We are moving on.
Of course we are.
Of course we are.
Helped out your friends again.
You need to stop making allegations
I'm not making
against people.
allegations. I'm stating a fact. You've said she's a close friend.
Okay, the next item we have is a vote for the Board of Selectmen's designee on the School Buildings Committee. So this is a town manager appointment. It's been the past practice to make a recommendation to the town manager for a designee. It does not have to be a member of the Board of Selectmen. It can be a designee. Currently, Mr. Grossman serves as our designee and has served the board well on that board. So the board can either choose to continue to have Mr. Grossman represent the board or appoint someone else. Mr. Holstrom?
Through the chair, to the town manager, has anybody approached you in regard to this position, requesting that they be placed there?
Through the chair, no, we have not received any specific requests from anybody in the office.
Well, I think in regard to that, I think that if Mr. Grossman feels that he cares to stay, and he's interested in staying on until the project is completed, I would say approach Mr. Grossman and then bring it back to us, if he is not willing to go forward.
Mr. Holstrom?
I'd like to make a motion to hold this item until Mr. Carpenter's here, because if Mr. Carpenter, as a sitting member of the board, would be interested in this, I think he should be here to at least speak to it.
So, Mr. Holstrom, yours wasn't in the form of a motion, Mr. Simonian's was. So is there a second? Second to hold it for Mr. Carpenter? I'll second it. So we can hold it to our first meeting in September to have Mr. Carpenter's input. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye. Opposed, so voted.
you're welcome.
Under gift acceptance?
I don't need your approval.
Under gift acceptance to the Animal Control Unit from Jennifer Grady. For used items for dogs, there is an attached list. The approximate value is $100. This is for the Kathleen Sabina Animal Compound. We have 2 dog beds, dog toys and leashes, dog clothes, 3 packages of dog treats, dog food, and other miscellaneous items. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept with gratitude?
Second.
This is a very generous, very
Yes.
wonderful thing, so I would definitely
Yes.
make sure that we note that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted.
I'd like to, I don't think I have to call point of order for this, but I'd just like to ask a general question. I'm just curious as to whether Mr. Holstrom is just going to continue to interrupt me all night, or are we actually going to follow Robert's rules?
Okay, we're moving on. Town manager items, a vote to apply for and accept $950,000 in grant funds under the State Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, 2014 MassWorks Infrastructure Program. Ms. Jacobson?
Through the chair, DPW Director Bill Coyle is here to speak to this item. I believe this is the second time that we will be attempting to get this grant from the state for the same project, which is very much needed on Sword Street. And I'll turn to Bill Coyle to give the explanation.
Good evening, members of the board, Julie and Sharon. As Julie had mentioned, this is the second time that we will be applying for this grant. We applied, I believe, 2 years ago for the total amount of the $1.6 million, and unfortunately, we were not successful. The town manager and myself had gone to the State House to try to push for this grant and for approval of this grant. Some of the feedback we received is that the amount of the grant of being over $1 million may have been one of the reasons that we were unsuccessful. But essentially, this grant would provide the town $950,000, if approved, to replace the 4 deteriorated corrugated metal culverts that are on Sword Street adjacent to the railroad tracks. I'm sure many of you have seen them. They've been there for years. and as long as I can remember, they've been deteriorated, and they are in desperate need of replacement. There's 4 of them. I believe they are around 36 inches in diameter each. It would be a costly project. Again, our estimate is around $1.6 million. We're applying for $950,000. We're hoping that ultimately, if we are successful and are awarded the grant, that the actual bids would come in significantly less than the $1.6 million, but the town would have to fund the balance of the construction costs for the project if it's approved. So it's something that would be a huge benefit if we are fortunate enough to get awarded this grant.
Mr. Simonian and then Mr. Holstrom.
What makes us eligible for this? I'm just curious, because I know we applied for it before.
This grant application, the MassWorks grant, is similar to what they used to have other grants. They were called PWED grants, Public Work Economic Development grants, and CDAG grants. They've combined all of these grants into one program now. Any community can apply for them. Typically, they like to see job creation or job sustainability as a result of the grant applications. We are going to the state with the basis of job sustainability, because if these culverts if they did collapse, it would potentially impact the infrastructure in and out of the industrial park, and potentially would have some issues with sustaining jobs. And there's also vacant property within the industrial park that we're hoping by improving the infrastructure, we can also make the case that that'll help with the leasing of those buildings and create jobs as well.
And just one follow-up to that, if we get the grant, I mean, obviously, the project has to be done one way or the other. So we're either going to have to come up with 1.6, or we're going to have to come up with about 600,000 one way or the other. The fact that we have to do this project, does this affect our road paving in any way, or is this separate from that? Just because it's, someone involves roads, so I'm curious.
Absolutely. It's something that we as a community would have to look at. We do have, obviously, funding on an annual basis through Chapter 90 and through the town's roadway program. Unless we were to go to town meeting for a separate funding category, I think at this point, we would anticipate using Chapter 90 and/or the funds through the engineering roadway account, which, if you look at the application, we have construction would commence in July of 2015, so would not affect the current list of projects that I presented to the board several weeks ago, that's going to be going out to bid this season for construction late this year, early next year. So those projects would still move forward, but we would have to look at whether or not we would utilize Chapter 90 funds or the engineer's account in FY 2016 as we move forward.
Okay, thanks, I appreciate it.
Mr. Holstrom?
Yeah, through the chair, is it a safety issue now? Is it something we absolutely have to do right now? Have we got some time to buy if we don't get this grant?
I think the pipes are obviously deteriorated. The entire, it appears as though the bottom portion of these structures have been rotted out. So essentially, we had 4 corrugated metal pipes that have sort of turned into arch pipes, essentially, if you will. I haven't seen any signs of failure within the roadway at this point. Certainly, looking at the portions of the pipes that you can see, it's obvious that there's significant deterioration. But at this point, having not seen any imminent failure through the roadway, I wouldn't suggest that we need to go in immediately and start replacing these pipes. Certainly, it's something that at some point we're going to have to. So to start looking at a funding mechanism now is obviously a good thing to do.
Mr. Holstrom?
Through the chair to the town manager, if we don't receive this money this time through, is that going to be something we can push off for another year and then collect some money, be able to find the financing for this? Or is it something that we're going to have to dig into our pockets for just to be sure that it's done and maybe apply for money down the road for a project already completed? I don't know, I'm just asking that question.
Through the chair, any of these programs, first of all, they're very, very competitive. And a couple of the criteria that they generally look at for the MassWorks infrastructure program is whether it, as Mr. Coy said, whether it supports job creation, and we're saying it's also job retention, but they also look at TOD, which is transit-oriented development. Does it support family dense housing developments, none of which do we have that. Does it support a 43D site? There are a lot of different criteria, and unfortunately, we don't meet a lot of that criteria, which makes it even more challenging to get the grant than some of the other cities, including a gateway city. If you're a gateway city, you actually get additional points on your application, and we're not a identified gateway city in the Commonwealth. So if we do not get this grant, we'd like to keep trying. We want to put it off as long as we can if there's an opportunity to get funding for it. But at some point, when it becomes, it will be up to Mr. Coyle as the town engineer to make the determination that it's got to be done regardless of whether we find the money or not, then we're going to have to move forward on it, because we've got to do it for the safety of the road. The issue that we're basing our application on, that we hope the state understands, is the Auburn Industrial Park uses Sword Street as its primary access and egress for all of its companies and employees. There's approximately 400,000 square feet of space there. About 93,000 of that is vacant. And as Mr. Coyle said, they're working hard and aggressively to try to fill that space. And they've done a good job, but there's still space to be filled. There's about 25 companies there, about 300 employees. If this culvert goes down unpreparedly, if something goes wrong and we need to close that road for an emergency purpose, it will severely impact the businesses in that industrial park, because that really is the way that they get in and out of the industrial park. So we're looking at this as a business retention, job retention project, and it may be a hard sell, given the fact that many communities across the state applied for this grant. As Bill said, it's been combined with CDAGs and PWEDs and all kinds of other acronyms of grants that used to be in existence, and now there's this one grant program that everybody has to apply for, so it's really, really competitive. We feel that if we keep pursuing it and try to work with the state to find out what is it that we're lacking, what would make our application stronger, down the road, we may have a chance. We're hoping this is our chance now. We don't know how many other people are applying, what the total pot of money is, and how they're going to allocate that. But ultimately, we're going to have to make a decision if we have to move forward with or without the grant.
Thank you.
Mr. Simonian.
So is it possible that we could get less than $950,000?
I think it is possible. I think we're asking for $950,000. They could potentially award you a number less than that.
Okay. And there's a question on here. It says, is this project supported by 2 or more communities? And is the check mark in front of the yes or the no?
Yeah,
It's in front of the no, through the
Yeah.
chair. What they're looking for is to see if this is a regional project,
all right,
but
I see it
because
now.
the
Okay.
infrastructure doesn't cross over any regional lines,
It looked like yes was checked, so I was going to
It's,
say.
through the chair, it's an online application.
That's
And
fine.
unfortunately, I had the same question when I saw it at first, because until you read where it's checked off yes, it looks as though the yes is checked off, but it's actually the no, because the application's online, so.
Fair enough, thanks.
If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion. Vote to apply.
Okay, I make a motion that we vote, the Board of Selectmen vote to apply for and accept the $950,000. Is that the thing
If
to do? Is
approved.
the $950 because if it comes in
Yes.
less? Okay, so for $950,000 in grant funds under the State Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development 2014 Mass Works Infrastructure Program.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Coyle. What did I call you? Coleman? Sorry, Bill. I called you Mr. Coleman. The next item we have is the status of request for proposals for Camp Gleason. Ms. Jacobson.
Through the chair, thank you. I just wanted to bring the board up to date since the last meeting where the board actually, I think it was our last meeting, the board took a vote to declare the first floor space of Camp Gleason as available for disposition, which enabled us to then release the RFP. Following that vote, I believe it was the very next day, we had the RFP ready to go just in case, and we did post it. It's been in the Central Register. It has to appear in the Telegram and Gazette on 2 different occasions within certain timeframes of the proposals being due. It's also available on the town's website. If anyone wants to see it, you can look on the town's website under a section called Bids, B-I-D-S, and then look under Open Bids, and when you click on it, you'll get the application, the RFP. I would caution if somebody does want to take the RFP out they should come to our office and sign up for it and take it out that way, because if we have a log of who's taken the RFP out, if we have any amendments or addendums to be made, we can only go on the list of people who signed up for it. So if you go on and just download it off of the website, it's a great way to read it, but we have no way to know that you've done that, so you may not get all the addendums. So there is a disclaimer on the website that, if you take it off the website, you're not going to necessarily get any updates that we have. The bids are due, I believe it's September 22nd. It's either at noon or 5 p.m. on that Monday, and the bids will be opened, a few minutes after that. At that point, the town then has to look at it and evaluate the bids and make sure that they're what you call a responsive bid and a qualified bid, meaning did they meet the criteria that we set forward. So it's going to be probably another month or so of this, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that the bid is out there, it's been issued, it's been advertised, it's on our website, and it's available for pickup in our office.
Great, thank you. Mr. Holstrom?
Through the chair, can you just briefly summarize what the RFP will, just for those people who haven't seen the internet, just to give a brief overview of what the RFP entails?
Certainly, and it's also, we did put restrictions on the RFP, and the Board of Selectmen, when they took their vote to declare the space as available for disposition, some of those restrictions were actually voted on. Some of those restrictions would be that the town retains access to the building for town purposes when it needs to, within a reasonable amount of time during the day, and occasionally on a weekend. I don't see that happening, but again, you never know. There may be an opportunity where the town needs to utilize the property, and we want to make sure that we have access to it within something reasonable that would be worked out. The town would retain exclusive use of the basement level, which right now is used for DPW, for storage of equipment and a small workshop, primarily storage of equipment for facility management. There would be no use of the water, and we've outlined on the RFP where the actual leased space would be. So the parking is available to a potential tenant as they need it, and the space right around the building is available to the tenant. But the tenant, if the lessee in the proposal needs to make sure that their proposal will have no adverse environmental or conservation impacts. So that's another restriction. And we also put something in the RFP that said a lot of this would be negotiated in a potential lease agreement when we get there, but we would make sure, and I think Mr. Simonian had asked this question, so I want to make sure I cover it again. If anyone proposes a use for that building that isn't currently what it is, number one, they need all their local, state, and any other types of approvals and permits and licenses. So by taking out an RFP and putting in a bid doesn't mean they can just do what they want. They still have to follow the process. And number two, if they are proposing something that requires what we'll call leasehold improvements to the facility, meaning that they need to do something to the building or to the ramps or to the bathrooms specific to the use that they're proposing, that they would be required to pay for that upgrade. The town doesn't want to put public funds into any type of a private venture. So any type of facility upgrades would be the responsibility of the lessee. That's basically, I'd say there's probably about 15 or 20 restrictions, but that's the gist of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Did you have anything else?
I have one last question about Camp Clue. If anyone does pull the RFP and they're granted use, ultimately, are they required to go through any type of planning board or zoning board for any use of that, or is that just part and parcel of the RFP and?
Yes, no, just because someone pulls an RFP doesn't mean that they're automatically approved or receive licenses. So again, they need to have all their licenses, permits,
Okay.
and
All right.
approvals from any board or commission, whether it be local or state. So they can propose something, but we made it clear on the RFP, it's their responsibility to get all the approvals. So if there was any type of a variance that they needed, or any type of a site plan that they needed, they would have to go through the process.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. There are no tabled items. There were no Board of Selectmen items presented. Is there any additional public comment? We have the minutes of March 24th and March 31, 2014. Are there any corrections or omissions? Just a reminder that we do have a joint meeting with the school committee Wednesday at 7 o'clock in the school committee meeting room on West Street for the appointment to fill the vacancy left by Mr. Laurie. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are
Thank you.
adjourned.
Good night.